President Cyril Ramaphosa has broken his silence for the first time since the 9th anniversary of what's now become known as the Marikana Massacre. He's expressed concern over a lack of justice and prosecutions in the matter. 34 mine workers were gunned down in Marikana in 2012 in the northwest during a wage dispute. Ramaphosa, Stillwater and families of the victims are heading for a legal showdown in the High Court in Johannesburg next week. The families of those killed, as well as injured workers, want the president and Stillwater to be held personally accountable for the massacre. Newzroom Afrika's Athi Mtongana has been following the question and answer session with the president. She joins us now live from Cape Town. Athi, so let's begin on that issue of the Marikana massacre. President Cyril Ramaphosa, of course, was linked to what was then Lonmin Platinum Mine at the time of the tragedy. He'd promised to visit the widows and the families of some of those people who were killed. Why has it still not happened?
Well, of course, that was a question that was raised to begin by MPs that were posing questions in the National Assembly this afternoon before the president. And one interesting development that he mentioned is that the NDPT has recently directed the acting director of public prosecutions in the Northwest to speed up and finalize the outstanding investigations regarding the Marikana massacre to enable then the NPA to be able to conduct prosecutions, and arrests can possibly be made based on evidence. And on that question around whether he will actually end up visiting those families of those who died and, of course, those who were left injured during that period, it was raised, and his response was that he's always intended to go and visit the widows and those who were affected during that time. But because there's been several engagements with those unions who often don't see eye to eye, he's often been caught in the middle. And so he is trying his best, as he put it, to try and ensure that he visits the affected family members. However, no direct answer as to when exactly he will be heading to visit those families.
And the president today in the Q&A session, Athi, did try, didn't he, to defend the government's treatment of the families and victims of the Marikana massacre, especially as far as the payout of compensation?
That's correct, Tembi. So it's interesting, though, that you mentioned the Marikana massacre, but there were also several other issues that were raised by the MPs, which includes the recent unrest in KZN, as well as Gauteng, questions that were raised by the official opposition leader, Democratic Alliance, John Steenhuisen, asking why the president has not condemned the Minister of Police, Bheki Cele, for allegedly fanning the fuel and fanning the racial tensions that we saw in Phoenix. And the president subsequently responding by saying, well, he hasn't seen the Minister of Police, Bheki Cele, as someone who was fanning and instigating the racial tensions that we saw in KZN. Instead, he says that Minister Cele has been involved with various community leaders, including those in Phoenix, and business owners, to try and ensure that he quells the racial tension between the black residents of Phoenix as well as the Indians in Phoenix.
And finally, Athi, the question about Zwelimkis, the former Minister of Health, who's now left. There's still pressure on the president to speak in more detail and release the SIU report on the Digital Vibes scandal. It came up again today.
It's interesting that that matter was brought up again 2 days ago. The Special Investigating Unit told the Parliament Standing Committee on Public Accounts that the former Minister of Health, Dr. Zwelimkis, resigned before action could be taken, and that he may have committed actions of criminality. And so that issue was raised then today by some members of Parliament before the president, and his response was very vague. In fact, when he responded to a question from an EFF MT, he said, well, the minister was not let go. He decided to resign from cabinet, and I, as the president, decided to accept his resignation. And he says, as the president, he then had to move on from that issue. He was very tight-lipped, not giving any direction as to what will happen following the minister's resignation. But it's important to note, though, what the SIU told Parliament 2 days ago. about the fact that the minister resigned before action could be taken. But the president today could not answer what exactly then that means and what implications the minister will face, the former minister will face, given the fact that he has been implicated in the awarding of that irregular contract by the Department of Health to Digital Vibes.
Athi Mtongana live for us in Cape Town with a wrap of President Cyril Ramaphosa's question and answer session in a hybrid sitting of the National Assembly. Athi, for now, thank you.